This is Pressers by FedNet, where news conferences from the United States Congress become podcast episodes for your listening on your time. Senate Majority Leader John Thune spoke for Republicans at their weekly news conference on April 8th outside the chamber. He focused on their record to date before reporters asked about budget reconciliation, tariffs, and their impact on soybean exports from his state. The following material is protected by copyright.
Well, good afternoon. We are wrapping up our first 100 days here in the United States Senate, and I couldn't be prouder of what our colleagues have accomplished, the things that we've gotten done. We have moved the president's nominees through the Senate in the fastest possible pace in 20 years. We did the longest continuous Senate session, 10 weeks, that we've had in 15 years. And obviously we've rolled back a lot of really onerous and burdensome Biden administration regulations through the Congressional Review Act. We passed Lake and Riley, which the president signed into law, the Halt Fentanyl bill, same thing, been signed into law, most important and consequential, I should say, pieces of legislation. And we passed a budget resolution that sets us up to do the things that we have on our agenda along with President Trump, and that is to extend the Trump tax cuts, obviously to rebuild the military, restore American energy dominance, and secure our southern border, at the same time that we are saving money, finding ways to have the government operate in a less costly and more efficient way, and attacking deficit reduction. So I'm hopeful that as we head into this week now, that the House will be able to act on the Senate budget resolution so we can get the reconciliation process started, which is where we actually do the hard work of ensuring that there isn't a $4 trillion tax increase on the American people at the end of the year, where we're actually building the wall and taking the steps to secure our southern border, where we're actually preparing our military to face any of the threats that they face in an increasingly dangerous world, and also lowering the cost of gasoline and other forms of energy in this country through the energy reforms that we intend to make. So we're excited about what we've gotten done so far, but we know there's a lot more work to do, and we intend to work closely with President Trump and his team, with our counterparts in the House of Representatives, as together we move forward with an agenda that is a good one for the American people and deliver on the mandate that we got in the election last November. Questions?
Good afternoon. There seems to be some consternation in the House right now about passing the Senate-approved budget resolution. Is what House conservatives are proposing, could that have passed with that level of cuts in the Senate?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what they're.
They want a lot less. They want a much lower or much higher.
I said Meyer. Yeah.
Sorry, they want a much higher spending.
Yeah. Well,
yes.
and part of what this is all about, obviously, is the Senate. We have different rules that govern and restrictions that are placed through the Byrd Rule on how we act through budget resolutions and ultimately budget reconciliation. And all we simply did was add the Senate, basically, priorities to the House passed legislation. So we didn't touch the instructions that the House gave. They can proceed with those. And as we get into the reconciliation process, we're going to be very committed to doing as much as we possibly can on deficit reduction. I think, as you saw, there was a number in there. It was a $2 trillion number. The House was at $1.5 trillion when they went through their budget resolution process. But I think right now, in some ways, we're speaking slightly different languages because the House and the Senate operate in such different ways. But at the end of the day, what this does is it unlocks budget reconciliation and unleashes all the things that we want to accomplish on behalf of the American people, and that can only happen when the House and the Senate pass the same budget resolution. So I'm hopeful they'll be able to move on that, get the votes that are necessary to get it across the finish line so we can start the next phase of this, which is really where we start making law and deliver on our agenda.
With respect to tariffs, the White House has said an additional 50% tariff will go on China if retaliatory tariffs by China are not taken down. This means that, according to some estimates, the tariffs could reach as high as 104%. What do you say to that, and what do you say to the markets in particular, which are very rattled by all of these tariffs?
Well, look, and I think you all have covered this place long enough. I think everybody kind of knows my views on tariffs. But the fact of the matter is the president ran on this. There wasn't a campaign event where he didn't talk about the importance of getting other countries to treat us more fairly when it comes to trade, bilateral trade, multilateral trade in this country. And 77 million people voted for him and his agenda. And I think he deserves the opportunity to see what kind of deals he can get from some of our trading partners. And I think most of us are giving him the space in which to do that and hope that he is successful, because that's good for not only for him and his administration, but it's good for the country.
Given how important, though, the Chinese market is specifically to South Dakota soybean exporters, how concerned are you that China says it's going to fight until the end, indicating that they may not reach a deal for months or even longer than that?
Well, and I think there's a lot of rhetoric right now, but I'm hoping that in the end that the Chinese, like a lot of other countries, will come to the table. There is clearly, in my view, room for negotiation that would achieve the objectives the President has laid out. And it could be to the benefit of both the U.S. and China. But at this point, I think where we are right now in the process is the President has made it very clear that he wants changes made, starting with fentanyl and the precursors that the Chinese makes and then distributes and gets into this country. But I think there are other, reciprocal type trading policies that could be implemented if the Chinese will come to the table and work with this administration. But I think you've got to give them room to do what they need to do. And, China right now, that's a lot of hot rhetoric, but they are very dependent upon the U.S. They need us as a market.
Do you think Americans will want to pay more in prices as a result of these policies?
I think at the end of the day, and as I've said this before, and, you asked the question about South Dakota and agriculture, yeah, there are all kinds of implications. There are a lot of very intricate trading relationships that exist today across the world. And, ultimately, we don't know what the economic impacts are going to be. We hope that the President is successful. And if he is, and he gets some reciprocity from other countries around the world, this may all be temporary. It may be something that the administration ultimately, adopts a different policy with respect to individual countries that actually come to the table and work out deals. And if they do that, then ultimately I think that's a good thing for the American consumer. But obviously we're all paying attention, and I think the entire country is, to the implications of what's been proposed by the administration. And, clearly we want to see an economy that's stronger and more robust, where you've got more jobs being created in this country, and the income gap in this country closing as we create better paying jobs in a lot of places around the country that have suffered as a result of the loss of the manufacturing base that we've had here for a long time.
Democratic leader Chuck Schumer discussed the Liberation Day tariffs and the fiscal year 2026 budget before Finance Committee ranking member Ron Wyden and Georgia colleague Raphael Warnock. Schumer was asked about the economy, President Trump's tariffs, before Wyden addressed his report on tax-free profits by pharmaceutical company Pfizer.
Okay, I'm joined with Senator Kaine. Couldn't make it because we're running a little late, but Senator Wyden and Warnock are joining with me against the Senate Republicans' war on American families. Last week, Donald Trump poured gasoline on our global economy and lit a match with his devastating trade war. President Trump introduced tariffs on so-called Liberation Day, but the only thing so far that Americans have been liberated from is economic stability. As everyone knows right now, the nation is in tariff chaos. No one really knows what's going on, especially the president. These tariffs are self-inflicted catastrophe on the United States. The market continues to teeter. Your retirement accounts are in a whiplash. A report by J.P. Morgan, now they're normally a staid banker, but you know what the title of their report was? There Will Be Blood. And it warned that, quote, these policies, if sustained, would likely push the U.S. and possibly the global economy into a recession this year. They continued with a warning, raising the risk of recession this year to 60%. The stock market's all over the place. But what really is bothering the American people is the potential rise, the dramatic rise in costs, what they pay for food, for medicine, for clothing, for housing, for cars, for gas. The fact that in a recession it's harder to get a job, advance in your job, and it's harder to and it's more likely you'll be laid off, it's more likely you'll pay for more. So the American people are focused on how it will affect them in their pocketbook, whether they own stocks or not. The choice in front of Leader Thune and Speaker Johnson is simple. Are they going to choose Donald Trump, or are they going to choose American families? Stand up to Donald Trump, or watch him walk us directly into a recession. And so far, they're not standing up. Congress must take action before Donald Trump causes even more damage to the economy. Last week, the Senate took the first step, passed Senator Kane's resolution that would roll back tariffs on Canada to ease some pain from American families. Speaker Johnson must allow the House to vote on that bipartisan legislation that would reverse the senseless tariffs in our longtime ally, Canada. Senate Democrats are trying to do more to help families worried about their costs, their retirements, economic chaos. So that's why I was so deeply disappointed last Friday when every single Republican rejected my measure to stop any tariffs since January 20th if prices for groceries and medicines and other essential goods went up. Every one of them voted no, and the voters are realizing that. Let me repeat. Republicans had the chance to stop this pain for American families, and every single one voted no. But we won't be deterred in fighting for Americans. That's why today I'm proud to be joining Senators Wyden, Kaine, Warnock, and others to introduce another resolution that would halt all of Trump's tariffs. The Senate has the power and the authority to stop this madness. We have a duty to act in a bipartisan way to repeal these tariffs. We have the ability to put it on the floor and make them vote on it, like Senator Kaine did in his resolution. Same with Senator Wyden's. And now let me call on him, Senator Wyden.
Thank you, Leader Schumer. And I'll be short. First of all, Trump's tariffs have taken the U.S. economy from being the envy of the world to being a laughingstock in less time than it took to finish March Madness. I mean, basically, you just turn around and we are trying to basically dig out from under these incredible experiences so many Americans are having with their 401ks and trying to pay for essentials. And today in the Finance Committee, we learned that the massive global tariffs are going to go into effect tomorrow. And they said, well, maybe it would be scheduled. And finally, we got them to admit, essentially right after midnight, these are going into effect, and they are going to hit millions of Americans with what amounts to an economic fireball in terms of its power to them. And apropos of what the leader just said, it seems to me now the Trump administration is squeezing folks who work for a living, senior citizens and others. They're being squeezed from both sides. The tariffs are hitting them right now. They're going to get worse tomorrow. And what we tried to do last Friday night is say, for example, that we were going to protect Medicaid for our seniors. We lost by just one vote last Friday night, but we are going to be back because for all those Americans who I've described as being squeezed by the Trump administration, we owe them more fairness. We owe them a fair shot. We owe them an opportunity to get ahead. So I'm pleased to be able to work with our caucus in two essential areas that go to the Finance Committee. One of them is tariffs, the other is Medicaid. But we've got to stay at it and mobilize Americans in every corner of the country to make sure that people on both health and their budgets, which is what the tariffs are all about, they get a more fair shot in the days ahead. We're going to stay at it until they do. And as the leader said, we now have a bipartisan resolution that's going to build on the Kaine resolution, but try to accomplish the same thing, only for 180 nations, not just one.
Senator Warnock.
President Trump ran on a platform to lower Americans' costs, and instead he is slamming ordinary people, hardworking families, with a huge tax on everyday goods. Let's be clear about what this is. This is a tax on hardworking families. These tariffs will be a $3,800 tax increase on working people. I want you to think about that and the implications of that at a time when a third of all Americans have only $500 in their savings account. And so people will literally be crushed by what is happening in real time. I can tell you that as I talk to Georgians, they want help. They want a government that understands the challenges of ordinary people. They want help paying for their groceries. They're concerned about the price of saving and buying a house and buying a car. Make no mistake, tariffs will only raise costs and make life harder for middle-class people and for hardworking families. Ironically, the president who ran on a platform to lower people's costs is taxing hardworking people, middle-class people, the working poor, while at the same time they are laser focused on giving a tax cut to the richest of the rich. I think that's wrong-headed. I think it's Robin Hood in reverse. They're stealing from the poor in order to give to the rich. And the people of Georgia and all across our country deserve better than this. In contrast, my colleagues and I are focused on lowering costs. And that's why tomorrow I'm proud that I'll be joining Senator Bennett to introduce the American Family Act, which would put money back into the pockets of families by nearly doubling the child tax credit. 3 months after I arrived here in the Senate, I'm very proud that in the American Rescue Plan, one of the first things I was able to do was to deliver on the expanded child tax credit. It literally cut child poverty almost in half. But we only did it for 6 months because we could not get it extended. We need to reorder our priorities in this institution. We need to pass tax relief for children and for the families that are raising these children. And we need to make sure that the wealthy pay their fair share. Congress has a role in it, and my Republican colleagues need to decide, are they standing with Donald Trump and co-president Elon Musk, or are they standing with ordinary people?
Thank you, Senator Warnock. Just one more point. I heard that Senator Thune said a few minutes ago that he and Speaker Johnson are speaking different languages, but neither of them are speaking the language of the American people, who want lower costs, who don't want to see tax breaks for billionaires, and want to see Medicaid and other vital programs kept.
Leadership, we've had decades of trade deals that have not brought down our trade imbalances with many, many countries. That has put our factories, our workers, our farmers at a disadvantage. How would you address this problem without... We have not
seen such a chaotic, across the board, and highly, well, let me say it again. We have not seen something as chaotic and as damaging across the board as this trade deal in decades. It's going to be devastating for the American economy and the world economy. Yes.
Are you seeing any evidence that this economic chaos, as you describe it, is moving the political needle in the Senate battleground states, whether it be Maine or North Carolina?
We are seeing it move the political needle across the country because people have less and less faith in Donald Trump's handling of the economic policies of this country, plain and simple. We're seeing it in just about every state, and the numbers continue to get worse for him and will continue to. But the numbers aren't what's important. It's what the American people feel. And the American people feel that he is not paying attention to their needs. They want lower costs. He's raising their costs. They want the billionaires to pay their fair share. He wants to cut them. They want health care. He's cutting that. Yes.
When Republicans are asked to defend the tariffs, they say that this is what Donald Trump's supporters voted for in every rally. He was talking about tariffs and that he should be given the deference to make these trade deals, and this fade is only temporary.
Well, the American people, I say the American people are speaking already, and they don't like what they're seeing. They're anxious, they're worried, and they're worried about the chaos of what Trump is doing, in addition to worrying about how deep these tariffs, how high these tariffs go in terms of costing them. He never outlined a policy like this. Yes.
How are Democrats going to use the recess to message about these tariffs? And do you think that former Senator Menendez deserves a pardon?
Okay, the bottom line is that how Democrats are going to use it, you're going to see us talking. We are working, Hakeem and I, our Senate and House colleagues are going to be out there talking to the people during the recess all the time on the issue of tariffs, on the issue of Medicaid, on the issue of taxes, on the issue of Social Security. We have days planned where we're working on all these issues. Did you want to answer something?
No, I was just going to say we also got a tax bill coming up that can help bring industry back from overseas by making it more attractive to do business in the United States rather than overseas. Look at the Pfizer report. A few years ago, Pfizer paid no taxes in the United States. They basically went and did business overseas. That's the kind of idea that the Democrats have.
Thank you, everybody.
This program is copyrighted by Federal Network, Incorporated, and provided only for informational and educational purposes. Unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this episode without expressed written permission from FedNet is prohibited. Thanks for listening to this FedNet podcast. You can watch live action from Congress on our YouTube channel at FedNet TV.